Welcome to the Hemophilia Federation of America's Young Adult Hangout series. My name is Eric Ferguson, and I am the media specialist at HFA, and I will be your moderator for this evening's Young Adult Hangout. The Young Adult Hangout series is intended for young adult community members living with bleeding disorders. We hope this information will help you advocate for yourself and others. It's intended for men and women from the ages of 18 to 30, and it's a way for young adults to share their experiences and connect with others. Hangouts have occurred for the past 3 years on a variety of topics, including how to advocate, dating and relationships, living with pain, inhibitors, and a lot more. So check out our past Hangouts on HFA's YouTube channel or our website. For tonight's Hangout, we'll be focusing on reconnecting with the bleeding disorders community. We've had a lot of feedback from young adults who said they disengaged from the community when they left home, and our objective is to share some resources so you can stay involved and after transitioning from a teenager to a young adult. We'll be talking about ways that young adults can reconnect with the bleeding disorders community through volunteer opportunities, programming, and other transitional resources. A panel of speakers will share their experience reconnecting locally and with national organizations. Lastly, I want to make sure some housekeeping items. Everyone on the line is encouraged to share their own experiences and ask questions, but that's a little bit different because everybody is currently muted. So to ask a question, please use the question box to the right of the screen or raise your hand on the toolbar and we'll unmute your line. We'll answer questions at the end of the presentation. And as a reminder, this presentation is not direct medical advice. It is intended to share experiences of people living with bleeding disorders, and please go to a hemophilia treatment center or healthcare provider with questions. And a big thank you to our funders, Shire, CVS Specialty, and CSL Bearing for their support. So what we'll do now is we'll go around the circle to give our introductions. And we'll start with Lauren Nybert.
Good evening, everyone. I am Lauren Nybert, and I'm HFA's Programs Director. Been with HFA since 2010, and I oversee all programs and services at HFA, but also specifically working with our Blood Brotherhood program, which is for adult men with bleeding disorders, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. And I am based in Chicago.
Great, thank you. And over to Heather Case.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Case. I'm the Program Director for the New England Hemophilia Association, and I, in that capacity, am responsible for running all of our educational events, including family camp and our teen retreat and women's retreat and all the things that we do to offer support and advocacy and education to the community.
Great, thank you. On over to Michelle Cecil.
Hi, my name is Michelle Cecil. I have on Willebrand's. I'm one of 4 in my family with on Willebrand's type 1. I've been involved, I grew up in Wisconsin, and I have my bachelor's in communication studies from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. In Wisconsin, I was actively involved with the Great Lakes Hemophilia Foundation there, but I've also been attending Camp Old Eagle in Michigan since I was about 6 years old. And through that, I have been able to get pretty actively involved, including being a former member of the National Youth Leadership Institute through NHF, and was the Susan Skinner Memorial Fund Scholar for the last World Hemophilia Congress in Orlando. I am currently studying for my master's in public administration at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan, which is about 40 minutes from Detroit. And in that capacity, I serve as a graduate residence director, which means that I'm one of the people overseeing the residence halls, otherwise known as the dorms, here at the university.
Great, thank you. And Dean Vieira.
Hi. My name's Dean Vieira. I'm from Medford, Massachusetts. I have on Willebrand's disease type 1, and I started going to camp almost 20 years ago, my first time. I grew up in camp as a camper, and then I became old enough to be a counselor, and I've been a volunteer for the last 12 or 13 years at the family camp and various other programs that we have throughout the year.
Excellent, thank you. And I am Eric Ferguson. I'm currently working at HFA, as I mentioned, as the media specialist. severe hemophilia 8, so type A, and like so many others here, grew up at camp, grew up attending sessions, and actually just got back 2 days ago from volunteering at my home camp back in Florida. So that was excellent. Great, thank you for everyone introducing yourselves. We'll go ahead and head over to Lauren for a bit of a programs overview.
Great, thanks, Eric. So I'm just going to touch on the programs that HFA has, and if you're not aware, HFA is a national community-based organization. We're based in Washington, D.C., and we've been around since 1994, and our mission is to assist and advocate for the bleeding disorders community, and that's looking at the entire family. So that's what we have here on the screen. So our Blood Brotherhood program, as I mentioned a second ago, advocates for men with bleeding disorders. We have national and local components to get involved in all of our programming nationally, such as the webinars and such that we have. With Blood Brotherhood, we also have an online forum, which is essentially a chat site 24/7 where adult men who are 18 and over can go on and connect with their blood brothers one-on-one and talk about things that are important to them. So it could be things like joint issues or disclosing their bleeding disorder to their significant others and how they managed to do that. All of those types of topics that they can connect on there, and it's a private, secure environment. And then with all of our programs, of course, too, we have the local face-to-face sessions with our member organizations that we deliver our programming. So again, Blood Brotherhood is for our men, Blood Sisterhood is for our adult women with bleeding disorders and gives them an opportunity to connect. In this group is women with all spectrums, so those that are still struggling to get a diagnosis, those that are diagnosed, so we involve all women, both who have symptoms and have diagnoses, to be involved in the Blood Sisterhood program. And then we have our families program, which consists of moms, dads, teens, and kids. And this, again, has national and local components for families to get together and receive education and support. So those are the main three hallmark programs at HFA. And then also underneath that, we have other complements to our program. So Sangre Latina is our newest complement to our programming, and this provides our bleeding disorders community that speaks Spanish to have an opportunity to come together and receive education and support. We have a native Spanish-speaking program coordinator on staff, and she's really grown this program tremendously. And it's a nice service to have to the community. Fit Factor is our online wellness tool, and it promotes health and wellness and is incorporated into all of our programming. So every program area and all people with bleeding disorders and as well as their families can benefit from just healthy nutrition and physical activity. We know that those who participate in regular physical activity and eat healthfully have better health outcomes, experience fewer bleeds, etc. So we use that program to, or we use that tool to kind of infuse in all of our programming. And then this is a complement to our programming as well, which is our young adult program. And we know that young adults can be both men, women, they might even be moms and dads. So it's a complement to all of our programs to support those age group of roughly 18 to 30. And so that's why we started the young adult program. So just taking a look at ways you can get involved with HFA's programming. Like I said earlier, HFA has both national components and then also those local components. And locally, we partner with our 44 member organizations to deliver face-to-face HFA programming sessions. So whether that be a Blood Brotherhood session, a family session, a Blood Sisterhood session, or something for teens or young adults, we connect with our member organizations, see where their needs are, and then we provide those programming opportunities locally so that you can get involved there. So that's a great way to get involved. Another way is to participate in one of our educational webinars. So we have tons throughout the year through our various programs. You probably have upwards of 15 or so educational webinar opportunities ranging from advocacy to medical information to more social emotional kind of issues like stress management or self-care, those types of things. So we have lots of different webinars. And on our website, which is the next point, our resource library, we house all of those recordings. So if you ever miss one and can't attend live, such as this one, you can go back and listen to the recording, and they're all archived on our resource library. Also on our resource library are various toolkits, which we have that are kind of a one-stop shop to receive education. So we have them on back to school, emergency room visits, clinic visits, traveling safely with a bleeding disorder. And in those are educational pieces, tools, customizable forms that you can fill out. For instance, in the back to school toolkit, there's one for you to put in your own information into a PowerPoint and show it to a school nurse or a teacher so that they can get educated a little bit more about your bleeding disorder. So even as a young adult, you could take that and educate your professor or even your employer if you choose to. It can really be adapted in that environment as well. Another fantastic way to get involved with HFA is to come to our annual symposium. It's our big event, and we have over 1,000 community members that come each year. You can get a taste of our programming. We have tracks for all of the program areas for Blood Brotherhood, Blood Sisterhood, families. We have a young adult track. We have advocacy information, and it's just a great way to meet other community members and form those connections. So our next one, we've already had, our 2017 one was in Providence, Rhode Island this year, and our next one next year will be April 26th through 29th in Cleveland, Ohio. So we hope you'll join us. Our registration should open like late November, early December, and we do have travel scholarships available for those that are first-time attendees. So strongly encourage, if you've never been before, to apply as early as possible so you can get a chance at getting one of those travel scholarships. And then finally, as young adults, we just encourage you to get involved in our Young Adults initiative. So whether that be going to Symposium or coming on these hangouts, we want to hear your voice, and we want to know how we can better, serve this community and what would be helpful to you. We also have podcasts throughout the year, which are focused on wellness topics. And we launched those last year that were quite popular, and they were topics like nutrition and yoga, and they're just bite-sized podcasts that you can listen to on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and just a great way to stay informed. So again, we just really want to hear your voice and get involved, and just thank you for tuning into this tonight.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. Sorry, I was on mute for a little bit there.
No worries.
Thank you. So what we'll do next is head on over to Heather for a little bit of the member org perspective on how to reconnect and the experiences that she's had with that. So just a couple of questions for her. So how can young adults engage in programming after they transition from their teen years?
Thanks, Eric. So to build on what Lauren just talked about, I think a lot of it is to keep engaging during the transition. And at NEHA, because we have all 6 states, we have a really wide geographic territory and a lot of members. And some of those people, like Dean, who you'll meet in a moment, have been involved for a really long time. And some have just started to become involved for various motivations and reasons. But I think being involved in the programming as they transition is helpful, because you can carry on offering a different perspective. You've walked in those shoes, so you can be a resource to other people. And attending the events and being a mentor, I think, is a really it's valuable to the people that you're involved with, and it's also valuable to yourself. And NEHA engagement after the transition means participating in one of the HFA programs that Lauren just spoke about, like Blood Brotherhood or Blood Sisterhood, attending our events throughout the year, and then especially, I think, attending some of the smaller events like the teen retreat. We have adult volunteers who come, as well as staff members. And based on my experience doing it the last couple of years, the teens understand the staff members have to be there, but they're actually really excited about the mentors who are there and connecting to them and sharing stories one-on-one. And then for NEHA in particular, I would say that family camp is one way that people really connect and stay involved. We make a big effort to have the young adults really invested in the planning process of camp and to take on leadership responsibilities. So that's one opportunity I think that tends to help people stay really engaged throughout the year and really connected to the chapter and to the community in a very dynamic way.
Awesome, thank you. And you touched on it a little bit when talking about coming back from camp, but any other specific ways that young adults can help out their local organization, their member org?
Yeah, so often we have our young adults who are counselors from camp volunteer at our other events throughout the year. So whether that's, running the youth activity at our spring conference or coming, as I mentioned, as a volunteer to our teen retreat. And then we also have several times throughout the year where some young adult or parent might contact me asking for information and looking to have a connection with someone one-to-one, or just having someone that they can talk to. And so we sort of have as a chapter, we have a standing pool of people that we know that we would be able to call and say, so-and-so is having a hard time, or can you please connect with them about this job interview, or whatever resource it was that they needed. So I think staying involved in the expectation and understanding that we want people to stay involved, and then also understanding that their voice is different than mine. So again, hearing it from a young adult is different than how they might perceive it from a staff member.
So it sounds like there's opportunities, and then also kind of the genuine desire for young adults to stay or return to the fold then.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Great. Thank you. On the other side of the coin, what kind of supports can these local organizations offer young adults who have recently moved out of the area for school, job, college, or whatever?
Sure. I think a lot of it is that building the community and creating those connections. I mean, certainly it's everything from letters of recommendation for scholarships or for jobs, identifying ways we could help if they need assistance with reviewing resumes or preparing for a job interview or helping to network. There's been several young adults who have contacted me who just really want to be able to have someone to talk to who's familiar with the community but isn't necessarily a peer, and just want to have a trusted voice. So I think that's another benefit in a way that the local organization can, offer young adults some support. And then everybody likes to sort of know what their role is and have a voice. So giving people a genuine voice and a way to be able to feel like they're a part of the community and their role is important and valuable is something that I think chapters really, hopefully, are working hard to do. So it's not the perception that, they're young adults and they don't have anything to offer. I think if anything, it's the opposite. It's young adults and we really want to hear what you have to say and get feedback so that we can continue to create and promote programming that's interesting and valuable to everyone.
Great, thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to add? Any last comments?
No, I just wanted to highlight this slide that hopefully everyone's looking at that talks about young adult engagement. And I think really to me, it seems like there's opportunities for engagement, and the more that you take advantage of those opportunities, the more you're increasing your connection to the community, which lets people see what your skills are and your merits, and then gives leadership opportunity, which then potentially could increase your career opportunities and give you a larger network. And so it all sort of starts to feed into each other. And I think in my experience, the people who have expressed some sort of anxiety or concern about being involved have every time felt like it was definitely worth it to go the extra mile and to volunteer at something or to come to camp and feel like their community just got better and deeper and wider than they had anticipated going into it. And it was a positive outcome for them and for us.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
And now we're going to move on to the second half of our Young Adult Hangout and kind of ask Michelle and Dean some questions, and I might add my input there, here and there, just kind of what it was like for us to reconnect. So just a couple of questions for you guys. Just to start off, how and why were you guys involved as children, as teens?
I can start. This is Michelle, sorry. So I'm really lucky in that my mom was diagnosed in her mid-20s with von Willebrand. So when my sisters and I were born, we were tested right away. And she always, she didn't want us girls to have the same experience that she had had growing up with not understanding what was going on with her and, not understanding what there was available to us, and also understanding how lucky we were to know about our diagnosis. So she always, she was a very big advocate in our community growing up, and she created like a Girl Scout badge program to teach young girls about bleeding disorders, and they could get, a Girl Scout badge, their health badge through doing that. And she would drag us along to that. She would go to health fairs and stand and talk about if you have these symptoms, you might have a bleeding disorder, and she would drag us to that. And after watching her do all these things, and after going to camp every summer since '99, I got this like super fierce passion to be involved in the community and to want to do more and give back. So when I was a teen, I was in the state advocacy committee. My state had also sent me to DC when I was 16 to Washington days. I had led sessions at the Wisconsin state meeting. I'd spoke at some of their galas to help raise money. And, and then I became a member of NHF's NYLI program when I turned 18. And all these opportunities I took because I wanted to learn more about my disorder, but I also wanted to help other people get that opportunity to get diagnosed, get educated, and then get involved so that way they didn't have to feel alone or isolated, and have the ability to become an advocate and live the best life that they could without having to fear the boundaries that are sometimes present when you have a bleeding disorder.
Michelle, thank you. Dean, anything to add?
Sorry, I got lost in that conversation. Could you repeat those questions again so I remember exactly what?
Yeah, just a really brief kind of explanation of how you were involved as a teen, kind of before you got disconnected.
Okay, now that I'm back on point. So, I've always actually been a part of the community. I was tested when I was very, very young because they found out my sister had it and tested everybody. And then my grandfather, who actually had hemophilia, started bringing us to the camp when I was very young. I did go through a period in my teenage years where I had limited involvement. I went to the summer camp and I didn't really do anything else throughout the year. As I got a little older, and I graduated from, I left college, and I was looking for kind of ways to add fulfillment to my life, and I realized that the volunteer work that I could do with the community was a wonderful way to enrich myself. And so I started going to more events, and I started asking, if I could help out and if I was needed, and more things just kept coming my way. And I've been pretty heavily involved for the last several years now. And I can say it's one of the better decisions that I made. I definitely wish that I had done so younger, that I hadn't missed those teenage years, when I could have done a lot of the national young adult programs that were available. Because now I look back and I see those programs when I go to conferences and such, and I realize what an amazing opportunity it would have been. But I'm glad that that I am involved now, and I like to try to I sort of run the teen program at the summer camp now, and one of the things I do is I encourage the kids going through our program to be involved and to be active in the community, because hemophilia is a lifelong thing. It doesn't go away. It's genetic. Their families are gonna they're gonna pass it on, and they could have kids with hemophilia or von Willebrand's, and these resources are invaluable. And this community is a tremendous resource. And I like to try to pass that on to the kids so that they can be more involved than I was when I was their age.
Great, thank you, Dean. Thank you, Heather. You both kind of touched on it a little bit. Some of you remained. Dean, you said you kind of had a period where you fell off a little bit. Just talking a little bit about why you either left the community or what that fallout was, what that step back was.
Yeah, so for me, I definitely haven't left the community, but I've become a lot less engaged. I started grad school in 2015, and pursuing grad school is a little bit more intense than my previous education commitments, and so because of that, as well as my position at the university, it made it more difficult to stay at the level of involvement that I had been as a teen and be successful in my studies. And to me, my education is most important. So that way one day I can go back to the community and give back as much as I was given. So I became more involved again last summer after I received the Susan Skinner Memorial Fund Scholarship to attend the World Congress. And so having that scholarship opportunity and having the ability to go to the World Congress and participate in the national member training, the Congress and the General Assembly, which is basically like a giant UN setup where every country is represented. And they talk about bleeding disorder issues on a global scale. And I was able to be one of the 3 official people from the US sitting in there. Though that opportunity really helped reinvigorate my passion for the community and has allowed me to become more involved on a global scale, as well as become more involved in a way that's easier fitting to my schedule. I found ways that I can stay involved on a not as intense level as I used to be, but still be involved in the community and help out, but do it in a way that balances my time and doesn't negatively impact my health.
Thank you, Heather. Dean?
What were we saying? What led us to step away when we did? The disconnect. What did it happen? What happened with you? I definitely had a complicated adolescence. I dealt with a lot of emotional issues, and it sort of forced me to step back from a lot of things while I sorted those things out and figured out how to take control of my own life. So it became difficult to be as involved as I could have been. What kept me at least grounded was the fact that I still did the summer camp, and I had very close connections with my peers and other volunteers at the camp. And, they'd reach out to me and keep, maintain a connection. And then when personally everything sort of started to settle down and started to come into place, and then I felt that I was able to take on more. I still had those connections, and I reached out, and everything that I needed was right there. And all I had to do was ask. And that, it's one of the wonderful things about this community, is that everybody is very understanding and empathetic, and they're always ready to help you whenever you ask. And now that I'm more involved, I'm so glad that I can give back and play that role that those people played for me for another generation.
Dean, thank you. And I'll talk a little bit about this myself. I didn't talk a little bit about how I was involved as a teen, but my mother was the head of the Hemophilia Foundation of Greater Florida, which was one of the organizations on the state level. So I was, I'm not going to say dragged, but I was brought along pretty often in all the events. And I feel like I kind of hit my saturation point after a little while, which once I left the house and went to college, was kind of like a natural break from the community. And I returned in large part because of all the different trials and tribulations that were going on in healthcare as reformed and legislation kind of swirled around for me. I figured it was time to kind of get back involved, as Dean talked a little bit about, and kind of give back a little bit. So thank you guys for your answers. So what resources do you use now? Now that you're back engaged, what are the benefits of these resources and your involvement? Employment, or talking to your hematologist, your doctor, attending trainings, or networking. Heather and Dean.
So what resources do we use now?
Yeah, how do you stay engaged? What different avenues do you pursue within the community?
Well, showing up to events, particularly in the New England Hemophilia Association, we have a Spring Fest and a Fall Fest, and those are probably like the two key events that if you want to start getting involved, those are a great resource, because a lot of the pharmaceutical reps are at those events. In addition, a lot of prominent community members will be there. And, as far as networking, just stop in front of a table, start talking. If you're looking for an opportunity with something, you start with a conversation. More than that, the more events that you show up to, the more recognized you become, the more welcoming people are, and they see that you're involved and that you're eager to help and be involved. And when they have opportunities and they think that, you know, you'd be a good fit, you know, they'll offer those opportunities to you. That's mostly, you know, how it happened for me, and that's the best recommendation that I could give to anybody else.
Michelle, anything from you?
Yeah, so since I've gotten a little bit more involved in Michigan, one of the things that I think I've been able to do to help get re-involved in the community is through my work with residence life and university housing, which is working in the dorms, as people call them. I have been able to better connect with those youth in the community and help them understand what they might need to be successful while they're transitioning to college while living with a bleeding disorder. So because of my residence life background, I've been able to, you know, I learned some of the young adults that are transitioning into college this year are actually coming to my university in Michigan. And so it was really cool because I'm able to help them understand, you know, the process of registering with disability services, having a conversation of what the dorm spaces look like on your university, and if those spaces are going to be able to best fit your bleeding disorder and the bleeding episodes you might have. Having conversations with your residence life department about, do you need a fridge in your room to hold factor? Does your building have an elevator in case of a bleeding episode? Things like that, and helping them navigate that process has allowed me to get re-involved in the community through the position that I'm holding at the university. So that's been kind of cool to combine both of those passion areas for me and help those young adults. I also really try hard to volunteer with my local chapter when I'm able to. Last summer, I didn't have a ton of free time, but I had a little bit of free time. So I took up an internship at the Michigan chapter, just, you know, 2-3 days a week. I went down, you know, some days I was filing the health reports for the campers that were coming into the next session. Sometimes they had me making bracelets for the kids. And sometimes, you know, I was working on recreating the medical alert request form that is used by hematologists to request medical alerts for those who might not have it in the Michigan community. So, you know, just through small acts of volunteering, I've been able to reconnect in my new state, as well as they've provided with me resources on how to be successful when I did a semester abroad, networking with people in the community, because even though I went to the Michigan camp growing up, I didn't live in Michigan. So connecting me to people within my particular area of Michigan, as well as connecting me with different organizations and, of course, local doctors and hematologists when I moved directly into the area.
Excellent, thank you. I would go in depth on my resources that I reconnect with, but I think it's pretty obvious. You know, I work at HFA, so I don't know how much I can plug that. So moving on, what advice would you give to other young adults who are interested in getting involved in their local member organization or the national organization? And I know we've touched a little bit on how you do and the specific things you do, but kind of the first step in the door that you guys did.
Yeah, so I think that there are two really big ways to get re-involved if you've kind of lost touch over the years. The first one is recognizing that no task is too small. I think it's easy to think, you know, you're moving into a new position with your job, or you've just moved states, or you have all this work on your plate. But local organizations, especially nonprofits, have limited resources. And so any little bit of time that you can spare to donate your time and help them with those small tasks can make a tremendous impact on them. So reaching out to them and seeing if you can volunteer at the Hemophilia walk, you know, for just a couple hours. You can't stay the whole time, but you can drop by for an hour and help fold t-shirts. Or seeing if you can file paperwork for them once a week for an hour. Just seeing if there's small ways that you can help, because that's then tasks that you're helping take off of the small or whatever size staff local organizations might have, and allowing them to focus their attentions in other ways. That way they can continue to help the community. And then I think the second thing that young adults can do if they've lost touch is to reach out to people who've served as their mentors or people who've inspired them in the past. When I moved to Michigan, one of the first people I contacted was my former camp director, who I am tremendously close with now. And she was able to connect me to the local foundation, and not just with the camp people that I knew, but connect me with other people that I could help volunteer with. You know, some of these mentors might be your former camp counselors, a parent that you've known from the community, or your parent, and just ask those folks if they know anyone that can connect you to the community, or ask them to bring you to an event, ask them to bring you to the yearly holiday party, and they can be a tremendous resource for getting you back involved.
Thank you. Dean, anything?
So as far as recommendations that I could give to young adults, I guess I would remind, for the ones that are, you know, still in high school, I would remind them that for most high school graduates, volunteering is a requirement for graduation. So, you know, that there's a benefit in that for them. I know that my volunteer work as a counselor satisfied the requirements at that time in my life. You know, for ones that are college age, there's many organizations, fraternities and sororities that also have philanthropy requirements for membership. And once again, the volunteer work you do with the community can satisfy those requirements. If, you know, some kids, I know that many kids fall out of touch with the community when they move away to college. And I would encourage them that if they want to be able to stay involved, then they can reach out to their chapter directors or program directors or other community members and say, hey, I'm going to be, you know, in Michigan, you know, for college. You know, is there anybody that you know in the local chapter there, you know, that you can put me in contact with? You know, I'd like to stay involved. It's certainly something that would be available to them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. And then we'll go ahead and move on to our last official question. And you guys have both touched on it a little bit already. But how does this reconnection allow you to be a stronger advocate for yourself and the community overall?
Yeah, so I think that getting back involved just allows you to understand the impact that you can make. Even if you're not able to fully participate, it's not just an impact on the community, it's an impact on your self-growth and self-discovery, because advocacy, I think, is more than just speaking up for yourself and speaking up for others. It's also about education and learning about yourself and helping yourself grow. So getting back involved will help you gain skills in reaching out to people and doing research online to figure out where your organizations are in your area, or where those are, or if there are more of them. And so doing these things and learning how to reach out can really help you grow in those different ways, as well as in a lot of others.
Dean, any experiences that you've had with this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that being involved in the community can help you advocate for yourself. As I said before, hemophilia and von Willebrand's are lifelong conditions, so there's always going to be challenges involved with that. The more involved you are, the more contacts you have in the community. And when those challenges arrive, you'll either have already obtained, the skills and information you need to advocate, or you'll readily know the people that can help you get that information. I know that, for kids in high school, playing sports can sometimes be a challenge. I'd imagine that in college, they may face a similar challenge. And being involved in the community, you can just refer to community members that you know to help you advocate on your behalf. Because as we all know, there's nothing you can't do with hemophilia as long as you know how to take care of you. Nobody's going to know how to take care of yourself better than you, but being able to convey that to other people that have doubts about that, these resources that you build through volunteering and involvement in the community, they make all of that so much easier.
Excellent. Thank you both. Now we've got just the kind of final, any other things you'd like to add about your experiences? Now is your moment. And besides, of course, as we've mentioned a few times, going to camp, because camp is awesome and great. I think we've touched on that a couple times.
I would say don't be afraid to, pursue some opportunities that might be out there that you might think you're not eligible for or able to do because you've been gone for a while. Dean mentioned it a little bit about how he wished he would have maybe pursued some of those opportunities when he was younger, but just because you've been disengaged for a little bit doesn't mean that the experiences that you had while you were gone are not relatable to the community. So if you're interested in rejoining the community, talk about why you left, talk about what you learned while you were gone, what you learned as far as how important the community is to you, to the skills that you gained from the position you were holding or from while you were at college, and how you can then apply those skills back to the community. And I think that people often underestimate their experiences and think that they wouldn't be able to come back because those experiences weren't related to the community. So don't underestimate the experiences that you have, and show how those experiences can be an advantage to the community.
So many things that have happened to me through my involvement in the community are so many intangible things. I mean, obviously, you go to camp and you learn about your bleeding disorder. You learn how to treat yourself. You learn how to advocate for yourself medically. But there are leadership opportunities in this community, and taking advantage of those has effects that you never would have dreamed. Building self-confidence, personability, these translate into every aspect of your life, from going for jobs to getting that next promotion, to take opportunities that you didn't think were possible. I've personally grown significantly as a person, and I know for a fact that I wouldn't be the person that I am today. I wouldn't be as successful as I am today if it wasn't for all the growth that took place directly from this community. I volunteered hours and hours and hours, and I can honestly say none of it was wasted. I've gotten back what I've given in tenfold. It's affected my life dramatically, and all I could say to anybody else is get involved, do things. At some point you're going to look back and be like, wow, I'm really glad I did that stuff, because it's made me a better person. It's opened more doors for me, and it's changed my life for the better.
Awesome. Thank you both for answering those questions. We'll open up for now for questions, and we've already got two that have rolled in, one for Heather and then one for Dean and Michelle. So I'll start with the one for Heather. So excuse me while I scroll just for a second. So for Heather, what would you recommend for those that might want to take a leadership role in their local chapter? How should they approach that?
That's a good question. I think I would, like Dean and Michelle have been talking about, is to really stay involved and to think that no task is too small. When I know as the program director who's looking to fill leadership roles, not just at camp, but in other events and programming throughout the year, I'm really looking for those qualities from people who I know could be reliable and outgoing and welcoming, and who are able to really interact with a whole variety of people and personalities. So I think expressing your interest in being in a leadership role, and then also talking to whomever it is that's in charge of them to see what they needed to do is a really good first step. But also just showing up and being visible. As Dean mentioned a few minutes ago, the more you attend things, the more visible you become, the more interactions you get, the bigger your network becomes, and that can lead to possibilities that you can't even imagine. So just showing up and making a presence and making your voice heard, I think is a great first start.
So easy enough as being there. Thank you, Heather. And now our second question is for Michelle and Dean. When you're applying for jobs, how have you justified your volunteer work with the bleeding disorders community without disclosing your diagnosis in the interview process? I don't know if you've either experienced that, but kind of a sticky situation.
Oh my gosh, this is so hard. So when I first was interviewing for the position that I formerly held at Oakland University, I was going through some interview prep with some personal mentors of mine, and I, had brought up my bleeding disorder in the interview, like the mock interview scenario, and they said, Michelle, we know that your bleeding disorder is a big part of your life, but we don't think that you should disclose this information in an interview setting, because we worry that there's some evil people out there and they might inadvertently discriminate against you because of it. So I found that the first couple of interviews that I tried really hard not to talk about it, it negatively impacted me, because my bleeding disorder is such a big part of my life that trying to hide it, I think, hurt me more than helped me. So moving forward in my interviews, I decided to take it from a different approach. And if I had directly been asked questions about my bleeding disorder, I just said that, I was actively involved in the community because I had a family connection to it, and, it's something that I was passionate about, which wasn't dishonest, because I'm one of four in my family with von Willebrand's, but it also then allowed me to kind of get a feeling for what the employer's view on the community was from their body language. But I don't think not talking about it, I think that talking about it is good, because your experiences are in the community are relatable in so many different fields, especially if you've worked at a camp, that you do yourself a disservice not talking about them, because, you know, when you're working with kids, that's a unique position that you've had. So it's something that I would talk to your mentor and reach out to them about what ways you can incorporate the experiences that you've had in a way that doesn't disclose your condition, but allows you to talk about the passionate experiences that you've had.
So kind of a fine line of how much to disclose, but kind of up to your discretion then. And so that's
okay,
all.
so
Yeah, go ahead.
So just, you know, I would say to them, just know that you're under no obligation to disclose personal medical information, certainly not at a job at all, and certainly not in the interview process. It's at your own discretion how much you want to tell them about that. If you do want to be heavily involved still, and you feel like that would impact your job, you know, you could be vague about it and say, hey, you know, there's this organization that I'm involved with, and I volunteer with them throughout the year. You can say what Michelle said. You can say that, you know, that you're involved because of family members, and, you know, that it's something that you've always done. And I could say, you know, on two fronts. The last job that I had they viewed my volunteer work as almost an inconvenience. They didn't see the benefit in it. And so I sort of kept a lot of it to myself. And I feel like that's an atmosphere you shouldn't find yourself in too often. And if you do, I would actually recommend getting out of there, because most workplaces are going to be like, oh, this person's a good person. They do volunteer work. They're involved in their community. That's the kind of person we want to have in the office. And those are the kinds of jobs that you should strive to find yourself in. We don't always have that opportunity. Sometimes we need a job, and we need it immediately. And just know that, you know, like, per your rights, you are not obligated to disclose personal medical information to them. If that's your choice and you don't feel like it's going to be viewed comfortably within the environment.
Absolutely. Thank you both very much. And seeing as there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and start to close up this Young Adult Hangout. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Lauren. Please do reach out if anybody has any questions. I know we'll have our contact information up soon here shortly. Just going through real quick. If anybody has any questions, yeah, no worries. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Lauren, to Sarah, or to Heather. And thank you so much for attending. And that will conclude this evening's Young Adults Hangout. This will be recorded and placed on Hemophilia Federation of America's YouTube page in the next couple of days. And have a nice evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.